break out the super secret Summit swag trunk and include a special gift with every purchase tonight. So pop over to the Badass Boutique and purchase your Summit swag. You know you want to. To get to the Badass Boutique, go to networknova.org/shop. Stair will be displaying some of these special gifts later in the session. So you'll want to stay to see what the special gifts are. Now we have a video from a PSA from one of our sponsors before we get started. Sorry.
This is Virginia. As Virginians, we know it can be difficult to keep track of what's happening in our government. Some services send updates, but many are tied to political agendas and can be hard to trust. Virginians need a nonpartisan, transparent way to monitor political outcomes and determine how they affect our lives. VA Our Way is a free update and information service that helps Virginians understand what's happening in the government. We provide factual updates with insights from both sides of the aisle, presenting a clear picture of the latest government outcomes and what they mean for you. Our team oversees the General Assembly in person each year and delivers real-time updates from inside the government. And we report not only headline news, but on a broad range of political issues, delivered in a digestible form to your inbox. Get informed and get involved today with VA Our Way.
Ooh, I love the game. Okay. 100. Ooh. Oh.
All right, Catherine.
I got that half right. I I forgot to count the senators, so I didn't win totally. Well, thanks, Robin. Great to see everybody in the room again tonight. My name's Catherine White, Program Director of the Women's Summit, and this week has been nonstop learning with superbly fantastic sessions and speakers. Top takeaways to date when it comes to elections has been, how do we get out the vote in the time of COVID? Voter suppression, and voter suppression. And tonight's subject matter is equally important as it's a form of voter suppression and election interference. So we are at day 9, count it, 9. Tomorrow is day 10. Yes, we're gonna wrap it up tomorrow. We have 2 great sessions tomorrow, so stay in the room with us. But today is day 9 of the experience, and brought to you by the letter C. And the C tonight is about campaigns. And this session is about the role of media and disinformation in campaigning and what you can do as activists to address that threat to our democracy. So join me in welcoming our great panel tonight. They're media and disinformation experts, and we're so thrilled to have them. I'm going to hand the mic right over to Lilly Strieder from New Interactive Blue, Lori Coleman from DemCast. Great to see you, Lori, all the way from Seattle, and Mindy Burrell of the Women's National Democratic Club to get this information started. So take it away, ladies. We're so excited to have you here.
Great. Well, I want to start off, first of all, by thanking the Women's Summit for putting this incredible 9 days together. We're looking forward to the 10th day tomorrow, but also the previous full month of programming that you guys did. I feel like we all have become more informed, more connected, and certainly more motivated, which is absolutely wonderful. Then I also want to introduce you and welcome you guys to this pretty hot topic of media and disinformation, and my co-panelists, Lilly and Lori. What we're going to do tonight is I'm going to really quickly talk about some of the neuroscience and psychology of how we process information and how we perceive social situations. And then with just that quick little encapsulation, I'm going to turn it over to my very knowledgeable colleagues who will then talk to us about what this means in the realm of social media. So I want to start off by giving you sort of 3 top lines of what I'm going to be talking about in terms of neuroscience, the neuroscience of processing information. The first one is that we are not as rational as we think we are. We're actually very emotional thinkers. So we'll get into that. The second thing is we're polarizing now, back to that emotion thing, along identity and emotion lines. We're not really polarizing around policy. And the third thing is that as humans, we learn socially. We learn with and from and by each other. And one of the things that we track particularly is how well we're fitting in. And if we feel like we're not fitting in, what does that mean for us? So I'm going to just very briefly talk about each of these things, 3 things, as a way to set up the larger discussion around social media and how we use social media both to perceive disinformation and then deal with it. So to that first point of we're not rational actors. A lot of neuroscientists sort of talk about our brain as if it were an elephant with a rider put right on top of it. And actually, if we could start sharing the screen, the slides, that would be great. And so what this is you can sort of imagine that the small rider sitting on top of the elephant, the small rider is your conscious brain, whereas that huge lumbering elephant is actually your unconscious brain, which is the much larger part of the whole enterprise. And what that elephant is comprised of is a bunch of hardwired cognitive biases in many ways. And the reason that we have these biases, these hardwired biases, is because our brains really have limited information processing capacity. And so over time, they have created these sort of mental shortcuts to help us be able to take information in and figure out quickly what it means and how to use it. So I'm going to talk about 3 biases that are particularly important as we talk about political information. The first one is one that we probably all are familiar with, confirmation bias, but it's something that I think is really important to just sort of always be checking both for ourselves as well as trying to understand the confirmation bias of the people with whom we're communicating. This is when we have, it's sort of our inbuilt tendency to understand and remember and engage with incoming information that confirms what we already believe. And then it also means that we have a tendency to reject or forget or just gloss over information that would disprove something that we really believe in. And the reason this is important to understand as we're dealing with social media is because obviously it takes away complexities and it takes away nuances. And the less understanding of the complexities and nuances we have about an issue and a person, that means that there are fewer opportunities we have to engage with them. So that's the first hardwired bias that I want to talk about. Now, the second one is attribution error. And this gets to that other point of us being polarized on emotional, for emotional reasons. Attribution error is sort of the way we sort of cut ourselves a little bit of slack for something that we do wrong, but we attribute it to it's a personality flaw in somebody else. So for example, if I arrive late, I might say, oh, I'm so sorry, traffic was really bad. But if my friend arrived late, I would say, you know, that's just so like her. She just always forgets to plan and she doesn't take other people's time into consideration. And this plays out in the polarization realm in terms of, I mean, that's the way we see, you know, we might excuse something that one of our candidates would do, but the moment it pops up that the other side's candidate did that, we take a lot of offense. And it's important to be tracking this because obviously that sort of assertions of identity and assertions of good or bad based on identity plays a lot into how we can frame our messages on social media. The third thing, cognitive ease, is very much related to confirmation bias. It's basically about the fact that our brains need things that are easy. And one of the ways that our brains learn or gain familiarity with something is through repetition. And so what does that mean for us when we're using social media? It means that we want to make sure that we're not repeating the things that we don't want amplified, but we are repeating the things that we do want people to stick in their heads and remember so that their brains, when they see it, think, this is familiar information, this is a familiar theory, this is a familiar face, so I accept it and remember it. Okay, next slide, please. So the other thing that I wanted to talk about very briefly is the fact that there have been a number of psychological studies over the decades that have sort of charted how we've been polarized, how much we've been polarized and around what. And really the last 5 or 10 years, it's been about our emotions and our identities. And it's not so much about policies and how we think is the right way to solve something. I mean, we can see how this has played out along the lines of how masks are perceived. Trump rally participants can't see a mask amongst them, but yet other people walking on the street, you may really You may even start to categorize people according to, do I think that they're liberal or conservative, depending on how much they wear a mask. And it has actually, for many people, it has very little to do with the actual health information behind the wearing of the mask or not. Okay, the final slide for me. Great. This is one that I want to spend a little bit more time on. And this gets back to that. We are people who learn socially from each other. This is called the SCARF formulation, and it was created by David Rock, who actually is a management leader, but he interviewed hundreds of neuroscientists and sort of distilled their information into this formula, SCARF. And SCARF refers to 5 social situations that trigger threat or reward circuits in our brains. And they're the exact same threat and reward circuits that physical situations. So if we're being chased by a bear, or we're really hungry after 5 days of not being able to eat, those same circuits that go off in those physical situations can also go off in social situations. And I want to bring this up for 2 reasons. One is because as we're interacting with each other, and not only in political situations, I think about this all the time with regard to just personal relationships and organizational relationships I have. We want to be making sure that we're aware of the times that we may be triggering people's threat responses. And we want to be increasing the times when we're triggering their reward circuits. So to start, just to quickly run through what each of those means. Status. Status means not so much, is someone a professor versus a first grade teacher, or sort of perceived status difference that way. Status means, is the person, am I feeling acknowledged for being a person? Am I being heard? Am I being understood? As opposed to, am I being ignored? So just to walk through how our threat circuits can be triggered. If we feel belittled or insulted, our status threat triggers go off, and we feel threatened. In terms of certainty, if we're not given enough information to be able to make good decisions, that also becomes threatening to us. If we're not allowed to control things, if we don't have autonomy, that's another situation that we find very threatening. Definitely a huge one that we feel threatening is if we feel cut off or not included or isolated somehow. So if we don't have that sense of relatedness to the people that we're with. And then finally, another huge one is fairness. If we feel like we're being treated unfairly, we perceive that as a big threat. So I want to just close this section with sort of the happy idea of the fact that with this understanding, we're able to engineer situations where we're able to create socially rewarding feelings in the people that we're trying to communicate with. And when people feel socially rewarded, then they're not threatened, they're more relaxed, and they're more open to ideas. So we want to make sure that we're affirming the status of people, that we're affirming, that we're validating them, that we are showing them that we know that they're there, we see them, we hear them. We want to be giving them information so that they can feel some sense of certainty. How much we're able to give them information that will help them control their situation is also a very beneficial, sort of socially rewarding thing that we can do. Definitely creating that sense of connection is also very important, and obviously treating people fairly. So with sort of that walkthrough of some of the neuroscience behind how we perceive information and how we perceive social situations, I want to turn that over to Lilly and Lori.
Thank you, Mindy. So if we can go on to the next slide. So as Mindy already discussed, there is a lot of psychology and a lot of neuroscience that goes into making disinformation so effective for so many people. So right now we're going to talk about the problem and then how you as grassroots activists can be a part of the solution. So before we get into the solution, we have to go into some basic definitions for you all, so that you understand how to identify the disinformation that you're constantly being inundated with. So the first main category would be misinformation versus disinformation. They're very similar words, but misinformation is actually the larger umbrella term. So if someone's talking about false information at all, you might want to call it fake news. I personally am very anti that phrase. That is misinformation. Disinformation is where it becomes where the intention is. So the intention is to mislead, and that is disinformation. If you're intending to mislead someone with fake news, whatever, that is disinformation. Lori, do you want to go into bots and trolls?
Sure. So, when we look at how misinformation and disinformation travels, particularly on social media, it can be promoted or shared by quite a few different, let's say, bad actors. And, so we want to talk a little bit about what these are. So if, for example, we hear the term bots, that's short for robots. Those are not real people, okay? Those are automated accounts that someone like the Russians use a computer program to create thousands of these social media accounts, particularly on Twitter, is where we see more of the bot activity. And in fact, we can actually go in and look to see that they tweet during the time that we're all asleep. And when the Russians are awake, that was one of the things that, really flagged in 2016 and 2018 was when the activity of that account was tweeting or sharing. So they're not real people behind those, okay? It is an automated way. And you can usually look to see if it's a spam bot, if they don't have a picture on Twitter, if they don't have a bio, if their name is auto-generated, like my bot handle would be @Lori6254967, the string of random numbers after it. You can see them be very highly active. So they're tweeting out way more than a normal person would tweet. And also, if you see grammatical errors, especially it looks like English is their second language, or they're using a transcription, translation service to convert their text into to English. So those are bots, and I will say Twitter has done a better job of identifying these bot armies, and so that has actually decreased somewhat. Unfortunately, we have an increase of trolls, I would say, and trolls are people. Okay, there's somebody behind that troll account. And those are people who may or may not believe anything that they're sharing. They may be paid to troll. They may be trained to troll. So if you know that the Trump campaign has trained 30,000 digital volunteers to basically troll people on Twitter and Facebook. And they will go, look for people posting, and they will write, why they disagree with this, or that it's not true, or, and you can just go on Trump's timeline if you can stand it. And all the people that are joining in on there, a bunch of those people are people who are real people, who have been trained to amplify Trump's message by responding to his tweets. So something in the social media algorithms, it's similar for Facebook and Twitter, but let me talk about Twitter. The more likes, clicks on a link or comments, the more that post is shown. And if you go to your home screen, that's supposed to be all the people you follow, right? But Twitter prioritizes those things based off of how much interaction there is with that post. So if I posted something and it had no likes or retweets, and somebody else posted something that had 30,000 retweets, you're going to see that post first. And you might not even ever see mine because it didn't get any interaction. But unfortunately, you can purchase likes, and you can purchase followers too. So you can buy people and pay people actually to click on your stuff and rise it in the algorithm. So if you're wondering why this, why is this one getting retweeted? Well, it might not be because it's too popular. So I think we just have to realize that the people that are on here, especially Twitter, Facebook is a little different, and we'll talk about that in a minute, but that you can't take it at face value. You need to know who it is, that is tweeting, and if that is someone that's reputable, or they have a source for what they're saying to you. Lily, do you want to talk anything else on this?
So yeah, on algorithms, the more likes, comments, clicks, the more the post is shown, which is a very important thing to emphasize, especially as you work to combat disinformation. Do you want to be the person that retweets it, or do you want to be the person that posts your own post and gets the attention that way and takes the attention off the deceiving post? So going further into our definitions here, sock puppets are basically a broad term, like misinformation kind of, in that it's just fake accounts that are used to manipulate public opinion, that are, yes, pretending to be something they're not, but usually aren't pretending to be an actual person. So that's where they're different from, say, just your genuine imposter. And then going further, deep fakes are these videos that are completely altered in some way to make something sound completely different than what it actually is. For example, a couple of months ago, people were posting this video of Speaker Pelosi where she sounded really drunk and out of sorts. That turned out to be fake, and that is a relatively new technique that people are using, and it's becoming more and more popular. And then last but not least, hijacking is stealing an adversary's hashtag, meme, account, or event for yourself and for your own manipulative purposes. So I think that we have the definitions down, so we can go on to the next slide.
We have a question in the chat, and I'm going to answer that when we get into how to counter disinformation, about reposting what the other side is saying. All right. So where you might see disinformation, of course, across the social media channels, each one has its own unique positives and negatives. Facebook in particular is more of a community-based platform, and it's based off of hopefully real relationships with real people, right? So the people that are your friends, your family, for example, are on there. Now, you may also be involved in groups on Facebook, and that's where you'll be able to interact with people who are not necessarily your friends, that you don't know if they're real people or not. So that would be a word of caution, I would say. The way that Facebook was manipulated in the past cycles is that fake groups were promoted. And in fact, if you're not aware, there was a protest, a Black voters protest, and a white supremacy counter protest that were both put up by the Russians with the intent to stoke racial divide in the US over voting. So, and of course, the people who were responding to these events didn't know that was the intention. So, it goes along that confirmation bias that Mindy talked about earlier is, oh, I'm just assuming that the white supremacists are out here because they're horrible people. But their rage is being stoked in their own event versus the event from the Black voters. So it's just very interesting to see that, and you want to make sure that you're responding again to people or organizations that you know and trust. So I think that is very challenging. Now, currently, Facebook is facing a big pushback on its ads because it basically allows people to buy and promote ads that are not true. They do not do any fact checking, particularly on the political ads. So we've seen, disinformation about voting, about vote by mail, pushed out by the Trump campaign and promoted through Facebook ads, and Facebook refuses to police that activity. So right now we're seeing a big boycott for the month of July of big companies and small companies not purchasing any ads on Facebook, which probably means you're going to see a lot of Trump ads in July. Sorry. But that's a great way for us to push back. Let's hold Facebook accountable for allowing the transmission of these, of this disinformation. Now, Twitter actually banned political advertising. And so we say it keeps clearly wrong political content. We've watched, of course, Trump in particular post disinformation that now they are holding him accountable, and they have actually censored some of his posts or put up something saying that it is misleading about an election procedure. So that is a big step for Twitter. The interesting thing now about Twitter is that now that you can't pay for political ads on Twitter, everything must be organic. And by that meaning it's by people who aren't paid to tweet, or a business or a candidate can't run an ad about their political information. So they need supporters to support them actively. Now, again, you can pay people to do that, but that gets pretty pricey. So I think that it's important for us to look at, that's one of the ways that we can fight back, and we'll get into that more, is how do we as organic social media users find the right content to combat this disinformation. Lily, do you want to talk about?
Yes, absolutely. So the other two platforms that we're going to quickly touch on here is YouTube and Instagram. Now, while Facebook and Twitter are usually text-first platforms, YouTube, Instagram, Snapchat, all of those different platforms are definitely visual first. So that means that they're kind of the next frontier in disinformation. The Guardian actually reported that they believe that Russians and other outside groups are going to use these visual platforms more heavily in 2020 because they are visual, and thus it's easier to post memes, post deepfakes, etc. that take a little bit less effort than text disinformation. So those are things that we're watching for as we head into this next election. Visual platforms like YouTube and Instagram are both also very much geared towards younger audiences. So that's something to keep in mind when you compare it to Twitter or Facebook, which are usually professionals, older adults, etc. So for Instagram in particular, they are owned by Facebook, so they follow pretty much the exact same policies as Facebook has set up. Meanwhile, YouTube, on the other hand, is owned by Google, so they follow the Google political advertising certification process, as well as introducing more measures so that they can verify channels, so that they can have content screeners constantly on the channels. So it's a little bit better, but it's still, both have a lot to learn and a lot to do. And we should definitely be holding them accountable. I think we can go on to the next slide here. So part 3, how you can help solve this problem of disinformation. We can go ahead to the next slide. Lori, you want to take it away?
I do. So one of the questions that we had was that people see things, let's see. I see a lot of Dems, liberals sharing right-wing posts on Facebook, quote, just to show you what the other side is saying, or with a, quote, no words type of post. Doesn't sharing it in this way actually elevate the message? Yes, absolutely. Please don't repeat disinformation, because Mindy just told us the things that we have the most exposure to, we start to believe, because at a certain point, our brain says, if all these people are saying it, well, it must be true, right? And that's not even a conscious decision we're making. That's an internal thing that our brain is saying, oh, I've seen that before. Oh, I've seen that before. I've seen that a lot, right? So we don't want to repeat their messaging, and we don't want to repeat their framing. We want to look at whatever that issue is, and then we want to put out the right information about it. And we'll talk a little bit more about how that looks in a post. But you really want to think about not repeating, their terms. Look at raising awareness. Where are the facts in this? So combat it with the truth. And you don't need to go, mano a mano with a troll or a bot. In fact, I don't respond to any of those people. But I will respond to myself, or I will put out what the truthful information is. Okay. All right, Lily.
Yes, so from there, keeping the volume high is extremely important. So yes, you do not want to respond directly to the trolls and retweets, etc., because you're just serving to amplify them and give them more of a platform. But you do want to join with other organizations, other people, other activists to get involved in crafting truthful narratives. The higher volume means more people are likely to see the post, which is extremely important. So keep the volume high and work together. Make it a collaborative effort. And then the other point we wanted to bring up is to use it to focus on influential accounts first. If no one's seeing the post, it doesn't matter. You don't need to respond. It doesn't matter. It's not making much of an impact anyways. Focus on the accounts that are really getting traction in social media, however that may be. Not every piece of false information needs to be corrected. And likewise, many people have pointed out that if you respond to every piece of disinformation, that could brand your organization, your company, what have you, as being anti-democratic. And that's something that will help you in the future as much as focusing on the pieces of information that are really important and really having an impact. And then before we move on, I wanted to quickly touch on what other nations are doing that are combating disinformation successfully at all levels. So Sweden, for example, has a successful strategy that I have made note of here that is really incorporating government, organizations, and individuals. So on the individual levels, they recommend a facts-first approach, developing counter narratives. So that's something you can work together with your other collaborative groups to work on. So for example, some countries have successfully made counter narratives to the ISIS recruiters, something like that as an example. And then demanding more regulation from the platforms themselves, reporting every bad negative post you see that's not accurate, and then fighting for policy changes. That's something that's really important. And then, not, of course, as we've already said so many times, not repeating false information, because that'll create heightened familiarity with the false information, just serve to make that the thing that people remember and believe. So basically, remember whenever you're remember that whenever you're correcting information, please remember to ask yourself, why does this disinformation seem credible? Why are people believing it? And that will be the framework for however you go on about this. I think we can go on to the next slide now.
Okay. We did have a question in the chat or in the Q&A about, is Snopes the best way to fact check? It's certainly one that you use. PolitiFact is another fact checking site that's pretty good. I recommend, just Googling it and going and looking to see like who wrote that. A lot of times people will take as fact somebody who wrote an opinion, and just because you have an opinion, it does not make it a fact. So, surprise! I mean, somebody should tell Trump, right? But so look at the source. Where is this information coming from? What is the source? And is this a credible source? One of the things on Twitter that, like, if I share a video, it tells where that video is from. That's embedded at the bottom. You can actually look at, well, who released this video? And is this somebody that I can trust? And if you think back about, if you remember the MAGA students that were supposedly confronting the Indian elder in Washington, and that turned out to be some manipulated video. But that was a great thing to fall into our confirmation bias, right? Because we all wanted to believe that smarmy looking guy was a bad person. Plus he was wearing a MAGA hat, therefore he just must be awful. So again, that falls right into, I believe that he did it because I'm looking at him, and look at him, right?
And that's also part of the reason too why people are people who are using disinformation are really focused on video, because it is harder to check those facts than it is for a text-based post.
Exactly. So make sure if you're sharing a video, you actually know where that video came from. And if you can't find it, share it. I think that, that if I'm going to fight back, so the DNC calls this the truth sandwich. Start with the truth. In the middle, explain what the lie is. And then finish it with the truth. So if you have to be explicit and point out where the disinformation is, it's a good way to frame it that way. So for example, if Trump tweets that, he's gonna set fire to the White House, and we all go in there and quote tweet it, which means we're sharing his live tweet saying this, this guy is an idiot. Call the fire department. Oh my God, who would, we're just amplifying that message. And I want you to know that Trump does that on purpose. Yesterday, he retweeted a video that was of older people, I think in Florida, in golf carts yelling white power. Now, we're all ready to believe that he's a racist. And so that also fell into our confirmation bias, and it got the whole Twitter world upset about it. Anybody want to have a guess why he did that? In the chat, do you have an idea why he might have done that? What just happened yesterday and day before about Russia and them to kill our soldiers? Yes, it was a diversion. And he is an expert in that. So watch for these inflammatory things that he says and does, because either he's projecting it, or he's trying to rile up everybody so that you will forget about the real thing he did. And he's really talented at using cultural wars to distract us from important things. He is quite the master. So let's see. And then Lily, I think you have some more things to add here.
Absolutely. First of all, if anyone who's interested in learning more about the truth sandwich and getting some examples and so forth, I highly recommend applying for access to the DNC's Best Practices Institute. They have a lot of great information for grassroots activists that can really help you solidify your campaign's point of view, solidify your own points of views as well, and get to work. So the only other thing that I wanted to quickly touch on here is Sweden's communicator mandate, which is, I think anyone who has any familiarity with communications and as a background knows in general, preparation is the first step. So in your organization or as an individual, so prepare before you respond is basically what we're saying. Have a strategy in place. Tactics and strategies, what ones do you want to utilize in this fight? So for example, some of them are name and shame, or an information arms war, so to speak, and then of course fighting fire with fire. So have a strategy before you go in that you want to utilize. And then when you take action, use our techniques that we already have discussed, plus your chosen strategy for that particular post. And then lastly, look at the data. Once you do post your response, look at what people are saying, look at what's gaining traction, test things out, and explore what actually is working here. So I think we can go on to the next slide.
Okay. So when a post contains disinformation or misinformation, don't reply to it or retweet it with a comment. Don't like it, don't share it. What you do want to do is report it. And somebody had asked a question about, is it worth reporting? It definitely is. Especially if it's reporting misinformation about an election. They're taking significant action on that. The next thing that you can do is what we call a subtweet. So a subtweet is basically a standalone tweet from you that rebuts the misinformation or disinformation that's being pushed out. And that is not in response to someone else's disinformation. And it's even better if, as a group, you have people who will all start tweeting about that, like how safe vote by mail is, right? And so that you can turn that narrative of it's fraudulent and all of that, because we have the facts and we know it's not. Right. If you do need to share like the actual like tweet or something that's going on, if rather than like retweeting it, take a picture of it on your phone and use it as a picture instead of promoting the actual content. If a troll, bot, or other ill-meaning person responds, do not engage. If you want to refute the point that they're making, and feel free to block those people on Twitter. But also, if they're bringing up disinformation, I have what I say, show your receipts, right? Respond to yourself on social media saying, and here's where I got this information, or I see people saying XYZ, or here's the truth of it. You may think XYZ is true, but it's not, and here's why, right? Use the truth sandwich to rebut that fake commentary that's out there.
And it's also important to mention, but again, just because trolls tend to like to throw a lot of insults out, it seems, when they're making their responses, don't throw down with them, basically, for lack of a better term. Keep it civil, keep it dignified. You're not going to win any argument if you start throwing out insults and stooping to their level.
And actually what they're doing is they're doing something very intentional. These paid trolls are there to make you angry and make you respond to them. And when you do, they turn around and report you. And that gets your account, can get your account locked down or taken off the platform completely. So they're there just to antagonize you. So don't give in to that. Let's see. There was another question about, what was over here? Shoot. Said, was the report of a guy who was on Twitter to investigate Trump? He started a new account, posted the content of Trump's tweets, and his account was blocked because it was labeled inappropriate. So I'm not aware of that particular story, but I will tell you what Twitter does is the larger your account is, the more leeway you get. If you're a verified user of Twitter, then you get a lot more leeway than an unverified. If your account is deemed a good account by them, meaning you have a considerable more amount of followers than you are following, you get more leeway. So if you were an account created yesterday and you don't have any followers and you start tweeting out misinformation, they're going to shut you down quick. I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying those are the rules. So what else? Okay. Let's see. I think we're ready to move on to the next slide.
Excellent. So on the theme of what other countries are doing successfully, Taiwan recently had an election and they had to counter a lot of disinformation that was very Russian in style from mainland China, actually, who wanted people to be divided like Russia with the United States and then vote for their chosen candidate. So what they did there was the civic tech community, which is basically a technology that facilitates civic participation so that they can solve bigger social problems without waiting for the government to actually do their jobs, because oftentimes they don't, as we know. So they could join forces with individuals so that they could combat the disinformation in numerous ways. First, they built a rapid response team that was made up mostly of volunteers that corrects the record in, quote, fun ways. So basically, comic GIFs, etc., that actually get attention and gain traction. And then their most common social media platform there is called Line. And what they did there, because so much disinformation is happening, not just in politics, but in a numerous number of areas, is that they built a fact-checking bot that was all with open sourced information that people could just type their question in and get a quick response. And that was largely, again, volunteer built. So imagine all we could do here in the United States with that same desire and motivation. And then they also, with that chatbot and all of their a lot of information, they built responses that people can use quickly on their own to actually make that response, to actually make a response that's clever and quippy without having to put too much of their own resources into it. And so I want to really quickly end with a short little snippet of a video from the National Democratic Institute that kind of will hopefully serve as a little bit of a motivation for us all as we work to combat this. And I cannot hear anything.
You'll start it over.
My name is
You know what? It's okay. We can just go ahead and skip this video for now because I imagine we have quite a few questions that we'll want to get into, and we don't have that long left on the clock. So first of all, what to do next before we get into our Q&A section. First of all, combating disinformation is great, and you should absolutely do that. But you should also work to spread positive messages in a fun, creative way. So do keep that in mind, that whenever you counter a piece of disinformation, also spread a positive message with it. And then more practical steps you can do is get involved with the Women's National Democratic Club on our Winning Wednesdays. Mindy is always there, I'm usually there, and it is a great way to work together to get out the vote. And then, of course, lastly, get involved with DemCast USA, which is Lori's organization. Lori, do you want to say something about it?
I do. I think maybe we'll, yeah, I will go ahead and talk about that a little bit. So remember the 30,000 people that Trump has trained to be digital warriors for the right? DemCast is training people to be digital activists on the left. So we are a 501c4 organization, social justice. We have been around for about a year. What we do is we train and equip activists from all over the country. We partner with grassroots organizations like Network Nova. We really want to make sure that we provide a place for activists to be past each election campaign. So if you think about when Biden won, he really mobilized social media, but then his army went away when his campaign ended. And so we want to be a permanent infrastructure on the left. And I think they're going to drop the sign up for us in the chat. So I think they're saying we need to wrap it up. One of the questions was, why don't Dems have people who are enhancing Biden's tweets and posts? Well, not every campaign is as good on social media as we would like them to be. And that's all I'm going to say about that. All right. Let's see. Lily, could you talk a little bit about Instagram on disinformation on Instagram stories?
Yes. So I'm getting a little bit of an echo, but hopefully you all aren't hearing that. But Instagram Stories is a very prominent platform. It is where most of the high traction organic posts on Instagram live. So what's intriguing for a lot of people about Instagram Stories is that the posts delete after 24 hours. So they only exist for a brief period of time, kind of like Snapchat posts in a way. So on Instagram Stories, that's where you will find a lot of the disinformation, be it in the form of a GIF or some sort of catchy meme, or in the form of a deep fake. And you'll see a lot of those. And that is similar with most Instagram posts, is that you'll see a lot of them as deep fakes or memes or GIFs. So what you can do, at the very bottom of the Instagram settings page and their Instagram information page, you'll find a place to report something that you see. Take a screenshot and then report that, because that is pretty much the best you can do in those scenarios. And they are getting to be more prominent, as are all image-based disinformation. I hope that answers your question.
One last question was, what is required to create a persuasive message? And, you know, both on Facebook, Twitter, you know, people say, well, how do you go viral? There's no explaining how you go viral. It just happens. But if you want to get out a compelling message, you should tell your story. Why is this important to you? Why should other people care about it? Are other people having the same problem that you're having? That's those connections, that relatedness that Mindy talked about. If I feel like I'm being related to in a community, or here's somebody who knows what I'm going through, that give that emotional hook about why you should care about this problem. Now, on the right, they use fear and anger. On the left, we like to use hope. One of the questions is if it's legal for Trump's campaign to hire trolls. Probably. I mean, Brad Parscales is the campaign manager, so they're probably.
I think it's a gray area.
Yeah, they're probably paid through a PAC, super PAC of some kind. All right.
A lot of this stuff Congress has not covered yet in terms of tech companies, etc., because they just don't understand it. And that's why we need to keep committing to electing fresh voices to Congress so that we can get these policies enacted.
All right. Awesome. Well, we're getting to time. So if there's any more questions, I think, Lori, you've answered them in the chat. I think we've answered them up. Thank you so much. I feel like so smarter to fight all the trolls. I have my armor. I'm going to hand it over to Stair to talk about tomorrow.
Okay, thank you. I wanted to thank you all so much. It really was a lot of fabulous information. I wanted to let everybody know about another upcoming program that we were going to be having, which is going to be on July 8th. I believe that's a Wednesday. I was just looking it up and I can't remember now. And it's going to be with moderator Melinda Hennenberger from the Kansas City Star, with panelists Pam Fessler and from NBR, Maria Pena from Telemundo, and to learn about election 2020 media coverage challenges in the age of misinformation and disinformation. So I am going to put the link for that event in the chat. And I wanted to pitch my badass before I will go ahead and I will pitch the Black Women Lead tomorrow. So this is going to be a wonderful event with Senator Mamie Locke and Jennifer McClellan, with Delegate Jennifer Carroll Foy, for a conversation on women in leadership. Moderating this conversation are Girls for Change members Genesis Holland and Joy Coleman, and Kayla Rostam, student representative from the Fairfax County Commission for Women. Join in for a discussion on public policies that affect women in Virginia and what they are doing to advocate for these policies. The importance of messaging, mentoring, and encouraging young women to take leadership roles will be highlighted. This session is hosted by Women's Summit team Krista Jones, Vote Lead Impact, and Lisa Sales, chair of the Fairfax County Commission for Women. So don't miss that. And it is not tomorrow at noon, right? I had that wrong. It's tomorrow at 5. Is that correct?
Yeah, tomorrow at 5. But
sorry, yep, okay.
That's okay, but I was still interested. You were pitching your badass and then you stopped. So
okay, so I'm going to pitch my badass now. I wanted to pitch the badass Black women lead. Okay.
That's right.
So as Robin mentioned, for anybody who orders in the Badass Boutique tonight, we'll get a special gift. Maybe it will be a "When We Vote, We Win" whistle.
Woo!
Maybe it will be a "When We Vote, We Win" pin. Or how about a Badass Women Vote sticker? Or a "We Voted, We Won" Flip Virginia Blue sticker. So
I want it all.
You want them all. Okay.
I want it all. Yes, it sounds great.
5 orders. And I think we will probably put together a T-shirt like the one that Catherine is wearing, because we were talking about it in the chat. So
well, yeah, maybe you need just a spot like that. See, look at my
yeah.
great T-shirt. Who wants one of these?
All right, and I will pass it off to Catherine with the T-shirt and to tell us also about the finale rally.
Yeah. Okay. And we can. Do you want to cut the screen? Okay, look at, thank you for our panelists tonight. We're a lot smarter about disinformation and media, because I'm telling you right now, this is all about voting, voter suppression, getting out the vote, and disinformation is part of that, and that is critical. So tomorrow, after Black Women Lead, then we follow it up with the finale rally at 7 o'clock. You do not want to not be in this room tomorrow, because we will have all the Congress representatives. That's easier to say because we have women. We'll have Elaine Luria, Abigail Spanberger. We'll have Jennifer Wexton. We'll have Don McKetchin. We will have Don Beyer, Jerry Conley. We'll have Senator Warner live in the room. We'll have the Virginia Democratic Party, the coordinated campaign, supermajority, and we'll have our Jill Casio, our usual closer for the summit. It's going to be a party, and we want you to all get in the room because it's going to be all about winning. Because winning is
the only option.
Good night. See you tomorrow. All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everybody.